There's something about Gus Bradley that I really like, and there's a lot about him that I really like. Maybe not his scheme, but I really like him as a man. He's willing to stand there, face the fire, talk about being embarrassed on Sunday and what they have to do to fix it in a mostly meaningless game. And no game in the NFL is completely meaningless, but this has no playoff implication whatsoever. The Colts are done this season. They gave away their chance to get to the postseason last Sunday. And that's going to bring a toll upon the coaching staff, upon Colts management, upon the roster, upon everyone involved in that organization. But here's Gus Bradley facing the fire, answering the questions as best he can, as honestly as he can. And as you listen to him, you know what? It may not be the scheme you want, but this is the kind of man you want in that organization.
I know this is an important meeting just because I think everybody kind of is wondering what took place, what went on. And, my objective is to tell the truth, not only to the players, but to all of you here too. So, and I don't want to be disingenuous when I say this, but, I'll give it my best shot in trying to clear some things up. First of all, I think the overall performance on Sunday was embarrassing. And as the leader, it's my responsibility for our overall play. And I take that responsibility. I think accountability starts with personal accountability. And, when you don't hold yourself accountable, as a player, then we have to do it as a coaching staff. But I think great teams have personal accountability. Ownership, we live in a world where, it's everybody else's fault but mine. And, we kind of portray it as victims. And, I think that's disingenuous for me to sit here and say, listen, we're not the victim. We're not the victim. We have to take accountability to this, and we all understand that. But the disingenuous part, you guys are all too smart. The fans are too smart for me to sit here and say, I take ownership on the missing tackles or some of the effort issues or missed assignments, but I do have to take ownership on the, if the techniques aren't taught properly, if there is a poor call based on situations that we're playing in, or players just aren't in position to make plays. That is on me. And I think, it's our job to put the players in position to make the plays and to make the calls, allow them to be successful. And we didn't get that done on Sunday. So in the player's job now is to execute the calls. And when they're in position to give great effort and make plays. And, when both sides don't get it done, I think that's what took place on Sunday. So, I think, James, to your point, there's some things that we need to work on. Obviously, we did not tackle very well. And I think there was errors when you take a look at it. We gave up some deep shots. We didn't do a good job of tackling. And I think, and it's going to be, Gus, what do you think of the effort? I think there was errors in judgment. I think, sometimes our guys saw two guys over there, hey, they'll make the play, and they felt like they'll make the play, and they didn't make the play, and all of a sudden you saw a change of speed. Rather than it's, my objective, my mindset is I'm going to make every play and get to the ball and finish on the ball. So I think there were some errors in judgment which led to big plays.
And one follow-up, I know you mentioned accountability on your part. Do you think the players are taking accountability for what we've seen?
Well, when we had a meeting with them, each coach met with them. We talked about it, and there's, each game, there's that old cliche, right? Each game there's one or two plays in a game that can determine the outcome. There were 10 plays in this game, 10 plays that determine the outcome of the game. And that's far too many. And I think they all had a chance to see those 10 plays and what took place.
Joel.
Gus, what style of tackling do you guys teach? I mean, obviously, when you get into the game, like sometimes you can't do it perfectly every time. But like, are you guys teaching hawk tackle? Or are you guys teaching like what do you guys teach?
There is different forms, right, Joel? When you're taking on a guy like Derrick Henry and you're a corner, versus a smaller type running back, you try to give them tools to use in those situations so they'll make the tackle with confidence. So yes, we do have different, styles of tackling for each player, and then for each player that we're going against. But, it really comes down to fundamentals. I mean, the strike zone tackling is nothing that we haven't all learned from when we were growing up, is to keep your head up, tackle between the knees and the chest, and come up with a body part and drive them for 5. And right now we're not doing a good job of coming up with a body part. When you tackle, you explode through them, step on their toes and run through them. We're not doing those fundamental principles consistently. There's times when you see it, there's times when players do it, and you can show great examples. But consistently, the consistent part isn't there.
Getting a body part, that's another way of kind of saying wrapping up or grabbing cloth or something like that, correct?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, we're not into throw-bys. We're not into, not wrapping up. The league's too good for that. And you can get away with it here and there, but as a consistent basis, it's not going to end well.
Nate.
Hey, Gus, along the lines of some of those issues that'll pop up with tackling and maybe, effort, consistency, it feels like that happens more when you guys are frankly not facing the best teams, the top offenses. Some of your best games have been, Broncos or Vikings or Lions. So I don't know, is there anything to sort of like the focus level against some of these teams that maybe aren't as potent coming into the game? Like, what do you kind of make of that?
Yeah, I think that's a very fair question, Nate. I think that this team is learning. When you look at our team, I just speak defensively, how many guys have been in a playoff run or in a deep playoff run? You could say DeForest Buckner has, and he has, he lived it. He knows what it takes. Now, we got some true pros. The character and the quality of our guys in our room is unbelievable. But there is some who say, hey, we have to play at this level in order to, do well as a playoff team. What does that look like? DeForest Buckner can point out what that looks like. And I think that's our job. I know I've been fortunate to be a part of them and have an idea what it looks like. And that's what I think was frustrating and embarrassing to the players is here's a great opportunity and to go out there and prove ourselves or to show what it looks like. And we just missed it. We missed it. And, that's what's unfortunate. And, listen, we all feel it, right? And I think that, if you're not embarrassed by what took place on Sunday, well, then you're probably the wrong person to be in the Colts organization. To me, that's how I look at it is to say, that part of it right there, it burns you. And we know we need to get some things fixed. And, that's how we're approaching it right now.
Couple more here, James.
Gus, do you worry about your job security, or how do you view just these last couple games?
Well, I know that's a question that everybody gets asked, right? Right now, like I said, I think, I would worry about it if I wasn't embarrassed. Right now, I think, like I said, listen, Shane's done a great job. I think, it's, is it accountability or is it ownership? Is it an ownership deal where, we own this and this is what it needs to look like? The accountability's there. If a player's late, they get fined. If a player's, playing time is taken away or, all those things are taking place. But is it the personal accountability? And we have some guys that take personal accountability. But it's just right now we have to take ownership of this. And that's what we're doing as a coaching staff. So I don't know if that answered your question. I think my focus right now is I'm still upset and frustrated, and we got to get this right. And all my mindset is that, we have one more game, and albeit it's not for a playoff opportunity, but it does give us a chance to get this right and at least set the tone for what it needs to look like, moving forward.
And one follow-up, do you think you have the players on this roster to perform the defense that you envisioned or whatever to the level that you think it can be?
Well, I think we'll always have those conversations. You're always looking to, evaluate players, evaluate coaches. And I think that, our job as coaches, I look at it this way, James, whether they're the best player or the worst player, our job is to make sure that each player performs up to their best capabilities. And we maximize that. Now, once they're maximized and we feel like, I don't know how much more the player A or player B can do and what we can get more out of them, then I think the decision is made, hey, we got to move on from this individual and we got to look for better. but I can't, there's no leg for me to stand on because I just don't feel like we did a good enough job as coaches to get the most out of our players for a game like we just played.
Last two, Jake and then Kent.
Hey, Gus, this kind of goes along with that last one, but you mentioned putting guys in the right position to succeed. There is only 1 week left, but do you anticipate any like lineup changes or like playing time adjustments in this last one?
Well, that we always talk about that, Jake, like on today, once we get into the game planning part of it. And, there's, we're going to hopefully get a guy like Juju Brent's back, get a chance to take a look at him, and then, put some guys in different positions just to see, how they operate. But I don't think it's going to be anything drastically. And if there was, I probably wouldn't say it, right now.
Right.
But I think, everybody's always evaluated, right? We're evaluated, they're evaluated, and it's our job to kind of, figure out these guys and what they do well and put them in the maximum position to do well.
Thanks.
And then last question, Kent.
Hey, Gus, you've been doing this in the NFL for almost 20 years. Have the younger players in the NFL changed? Is there a difference in the younger players today from like 06, 07, 08?
I don't know. I mean, they're extremely competitive. They got a lot of pride. There's a lot of characteristics that I think that you can look back at that time, Kent, and look back now. And, DeForest Buckner, would he be any different in 2008 as a player, or fitting in with that team than he is now? I don't think so. I think he'd be a great teammate just like he is now. So I think there's always one or two that, you kind of scratch your head on kind of their mindset and where they're at. But I mean, if, just like coaching, right? I mean, I think every coach probably every player enjoys their coaches, but they respect the ones that get them better. And I think that the player wants to get better just like they did in 2008 and 2009. And, they want to play for the team they're on. They enjoy their teammates and they're representing the Colts and in whichever team they're on. And they take pride in that just like they did back then. That's how I see it. I don't, the competitiveness and all that is the same. And it hurts just as much back then and now as it did back then.
So there's Gus Bradley. And we might not see him again because somebody's got to pay, right? And I don't know how far up the chain this is going to go, but somebody's losing their job over this season and what's happened over the previous 3 seasons as well. This team has underperformed from 2021 forward. 3 of those seasons, Gus Bradley was the defensive coordinator. And you can't ignore that. And what happened on Sunday, you can't ignore that either. But Gus Bradley's a good dude. And at some point, we got to remember that these are human beings with families and a profession. That doesn't mean that you give them a pass. It doesn't mean that you're especially tolerant of poor play. But it means that you have a little bit of empathy in your heart for a guy who's doing his job as best he can and came up short. You got to have empathy in your heart, and you've got to have some admiration for his willingness to stand there and face the fire and give us his best version of the truth.